Hey everybody, Coach Toolshed here, and in today's video I have to do something that I absolutely do not want to do by any stretch of the imagination. Something that I would rarely do in any context, but in this situation I have to bring some actual facts and some critical thinking to a situation because once again we have a story coming from Jason Schreier and the mainstream gaming media, and everyone's just running with another report from gaming's premier activist, Jason Schreier, and of course we're seeing YouTube videos popping up left and right now about the situation regarding Gearbox and Randy Pitchford and these bonuses that are supposed to be paid for the Gearbox employees who worked on Borderlands 3. There's a lot to get into here, but I'm going to try to keep it as brief as possible because the points I have to make are really rather simple, but it's stuff that's being either outright completely misrepresented by the media, or in some cases stuff that if you just think about some of this stuff for 2 seconds and use some common sense, you'll understand how big of a nonsense story this is that is now being completely blown out of proportion, and it's now put me in the very unenviable position where I have to defend Randy Pitchford. Come on, guys, get your heads together. But anyway, let's just jump right into this. What am I talking about today? Now, in case you don't know what I'm talking about, just about a day or so ago, intrepid union activist Jason Schreier wrote another one of his articles acting like fully grown adult game developers have no bearing on their own careers and are just the innocent babe-in-the-woods victims of another AAA company. In this case, we're talking about the developers who worked on Borderlands 3 for Gearbox and Randy Pitchford. Now, the way the narrative is being spun now is that Randy Pitchford is a scumbag who lied to his employees and now is screwing them out of a bonus that they were promised for Borderlands 3. Now, we need to get into the nitty-gritty here and talk about the actual financial situation that these developers have put themselves in. Now, according to the article, Gearbox does not pay what is considered to be the average baseline salary for game development. They actually pay a bit lower. The reason for that is that the developers who work for that company are provided with profit sharing based on the amount of profit that is garnered from the individual sales of the games that they work on. They work off a 60-40 split where 60% goes to the company and 40% is split among the employees in a profit sharing pool after the companies themselves recoup the development cost for the game. This is very important, and this is critical to the scenario we have to discuss today. Now, again, I do not want to have to defend Randy Pitchford, and I have to say right off the bat, anyone who gets involved working for Gearbox and goes to work for Randy Pitchford is kind of, I'm sorry, I gotta come out and say it, you're kind of an idiot. You're basically doing financial dealings with the Tuco Salamanca of video game development. Why anyone would go and work for this guy after it has been proven time and time again that he is just not a trustworthy person and not anyone that you should work for, including someone who has physically assaulted employees according to credible witnesses. I'm sorry, if you get into bed with this guy and go and work for him, that's just a foolish decision to start with. And I really don't feel much pity for you for going to work for a guy that is known to be this sort of individual. I'm sorry, that's a foolish decision, and that just has to be said right out of the gates. Again, I don't want to defend this guy, but come on. Give me a break. You got to use your head. Why would you go work for this guy? Well, the reason why they say so many people do go to work for them is because of this profit sharing. So like I said, the employees, after the game launches, and the companies, this is going to include the platform holders, this is going to include the publisher, and the development company itself, Gearbox. Once all those companies recoup their money, then out of the profits that come after that, the employees are supposed to get 40% of the profit. Now, these employees right now are running around saying, oh, we were promised all this money, we were promised we were supposed to get tens of thousands of dollars worth of bonuses, except I highly doubt that they were actually promised a solid financial number. No, what they were promised is 40% of the profit of the game for Borderlands 3. Now, of course, you're going to say, well, Borderlands 3 was really successful. Yes, okay, it did sell a lot of copies. But let's look at some actual facts here. You have to do a little bit of digging for this stuff, and I understand that's kind of difficult for people here on YouTube to do. But let's go and look. First off, when we're talking about recouping development cost, well, you have to know what the development costs were. If you go back and look at articles from 2012, you will find that Gearbox at the time said that the development cost for Borderlands 2 was only around $30 million. They put it between $30 and $35 million for total development cost. The development cost for Borderlands 3 was remarkably higher, coming in at $95 million for just the base game, and including all the DLC and the ongoing live service support, the development cost for Borderlands 3 is going to come out peaking around $140 million. So we're talking about more than quadrupling the development cost. So right off the bat, you have to factor that in. It's going to take the companies a lot more time and a lot more money to actually recoup those development costs. So right away, you're cutting into that end game bonus that the developers were going to get. That's something that people are entirely ignoring. The baseline development costs for the two games are drastically different. Something that feeds into that is the second point that has to be made about this. The amount of employees who worked on Borderlands 2 is nowhere close to the amount of people that worked on Borderlands 3. The amount of employees that Gearbox has currently is over 800 listed employees. These people are all going to be part of that profit-sharing pie at the end of the day. When Borderlands 2 was being worked on a decade ago, Gearbox was nowhere close to that size. They didn't even crack 300 people until 2017. So back when Borderlands 2 was coming out, which was really their first massive hit. I mean, Borderlands was a hit game, but not like Borderlands 2. Borderlands 2 was really the game that really put Gearbox on the map as a major company. The number of employees back during the development for Borderlands 2 was much smaller, about a quarter of the size. Hence, the development cost rise exponentially for Borderlands 3 when you add several hundred new employees. If you go from 1 to 200 employees up to over 800, guess what? That's going to be a problem. And this is where the bonus situation is coming into play. And this is where some basic common sense and elementary school math comes into the situation, which everyone is ignoring. If you have a pizza and it's cut into 8 slices and you're splitting it up amongst 8 people, well, everyone's going to get a nice big slice of pizza, aren't they? However, if you take that same size pie and you cut it into 60 different pieces, well, everyone's just going to get a small sliver of that. And like I said previously, with the development cost, the size of the pie that you're working with at this point, when the game hasn't even been out for a year yet, the size of the profit-sharing pie is not as large as the previous game to begin with. Even though Borderlands 3 sold well, and they said it was their fastest-selling game they've ever had, even though it sold well, the sheer size of the development cost to start things out means that the pie you're working with for the profit sharing is much smaller. Add in the fact that every single employee that they've hired over the past decade is going to take their own slice of the pie, thereby taking money out of the pockets of the people who thought that they were going to get these big bonuses. You have to understand, the math is going to end up being drastically worse for you than it would have been for the previous game. So when these employees say, oh, we were promised this, were you really promised a hard and fast number, or were you setting your expectation based on what people were saying, what they earned from Borderlands 2? When you say management, you're talking about people who have probably been around for a while. They've probably been around since Borderlands 2 came out. And if they said, oh yeah, I made tens of thousands of dollars in bonus money off of Borderlands 2, and the current newer employees are basing their expectations off of what those employees are saying, they're setting their expectations up to fail. Because, like I just explained, the numbers don't add up for you anymore. Even if you are getting the full amount that you're supposed to get based on this 60-40 split, the pie is that much smaller, and you're splitting it now with several hundred different people as opposed to maybe just a couple of hundred. It's an entirely different financial scenario. And for Jason Schreier and everyone else in the media to just ignore that, these basic facts that someone like myself can just go, you can look this stuff up. It's not that difficult. And for them to just ignore it and act like this is Randy Pitchford screwing over the employees entirely, sorry, but that's just not the case. Now, according to the employees who were at the meeting, Randy Pitchford gave them the classic jerk-off employer thing. If you don't like it, there's the door type of deal. That is indefensible. absolutely no call for that, especially in the current economic situation we were in. I do certainly feel for employees in that scenario, because any employer who uses tactics like that, and actually the guy that I work for now says that all the time, I got no respect for the guy myself. But besides that, yes, if Randy Pitchford actually said that, yeah, dirtbag move, and he should be criticized for that. But when it comes to this financial situation, I'm sorry. You have to show me, you would have to prove to me that they're somehow lying about the profit that they made off of this game to this point. Also, let's not forget, these employees are not, this isn't the only bonus they're going to get. They're going to be bonused off quarterly. Now, if Borderlands 3, if the DLC picks up and a lot of people pick the game back up and it keeps making the same amount of revenue over the years that Borderlands 2 did, let's not forget, Borderlands 2 sold over 20 million copies and had long legs. That game sold and sold and sold for a long time. They had multiple re-releases, and I'm sure the people got bonused out for stuff like that. If Borderlands 3 has similar legs, then over time, they are going to get much more bonus checks. But right now, yeah, your checks aren't going to be as big. It's simple math. Again, this is the sort of math you learn in elementary school. And I'm sorry, when we're talking about full-grown adults with college degrees going into these jobs, if you guys can't look around the corner and say, oh, geez, there's several hundred more employees that I have to share this profit pool with. I mean, this is just common sense. And if you can't see this coming, if you didn't anticipate that, and in fact, you see people in this Schreier article being like, well, we based our financial futures on this, rah, rah, rah. Never do that. Never base your financial planning on a bonus. That is just sheer stupidity. You base it on what you're actually making, what you're guaranteed to make. If you're basing your financial future off a potential bonus that you might maybe earn if a project goes well, that's just foolhardy. Plain and simple. I'm not going to accept that as an excuse. I'm sorry. I'm sick and tired of this. All developers are being taken advantage of and they're babes in the wood. No. You have to apply a little bit of critical thinking. And when you're getting involved in a scenario where you're purposefully going after a job that you know pays less than market value for development, and the only reason why is because they're promising you some back-end money, if you can't pick up on the fact that the company has swelled in size over the last 10 years, and if you can't pick up on the fact that development costs for that reason are going to go up exponentially and therefore cut into your profit margin pool, then you're just a dummy, or you're not thinking. And you can't just dump this all, I'm sorry, you can't just dump this all and say, Randy Pitchford is a scumbag. Because in this situation, unless you can prove to me that he's not giving you the full 40%, then you don't have a leg to stand on. And you got involved, this is a contract that you guys got involved with, you chose to do so of your own free volition, and you can't come crying afterwards when the money doesn't work out for you because you didn't think this through, okay? Was there maybe some situations where employees set higher expectations than they should have? I don't know. I'm not privy to those conversations. But were these people, they keep saying they were promised this money. Were they actually promised the money, or were they promised the 40% split? Because if you can show me that you were actually promised, yes, you are going to make a $100,000 bonus on this game, and then they didn't give it to you, well, then you probably have the makings for a class action suit on your hands. But I don't think that's what actually happened. I think what actually happened here is you had former employees or people, older employees that work there say, oh man, I made all this money off the last game, and people just expected that since this game was also going to sell well, that they would make similar amounts of money without actually doing any critical thinking whatsoever. I'm sorry, you do not have a leg to stand on. Unless you can show me that they're screwing you out of the 40% profit margin, you got no leg to stand on. The other thing I keep seeing repeated ad nauseum with this story is every single person that talks about this or writes about this or commenters down in the comment section, everyone seems to be bringing up, oh, Randy Pitchford screwed the employees out of their bonuses for the last game when he took $20 million out of their cut. That is not true. That is factually not true. This case was taken to court, and the judge threw the case out because he said that the evidence exonerated Randy Pitchford. It wasn't a situation where there was a lack of evidence. The actual evidence was that he did not take the $12 million out of the employee pool money. He did not screw his employees out of the money. Again, I hate to defend the guy, but do some basic fact checking. The case has been settled in court. The judge threw it out. Okay? End of story. Anyone rumbling around still saying that Randy Pitchford took $12 million from the employees for the last game, I'm sorry, that is not accurate. Go back. The case was settled back in October, about 5-6 months ago. Do some research. Everyone just wants to run with the narrative. The internet hive mind goes wild. Yes, Randy Pitchford is a dirtbag. Yes, in many cases he is indefensible. The guy has publicly made a fool of himself many times. Let's not forget. I mean, I made a video about the guy last year with the whole microtransaction situation, him going off on the reporter because he thought that they were in bed together with the promotional aspect of the game. Okay, the guy is a dirtbag. That's a fact. But the fact here in this situation, again, you're going to have to show me that they're somehow defrauding you, because all of these allegations in this Schreier article, you can poke through it with a feather. Okay, it's ridiculous. Do some math. This is elementary level school math. Do some math, apply some critical thinking, and apply a little bit of common sense, and maybe, I don't know, do some research. All you journalists out there, instead of just regurgitating everything that Jason Schreier tells you and acting like everything he says is gospel. Because let's face the fact, every single thing that he makes, every story and article he puts out is directly related to disparaging AAA companies and trying to act like the game developers are just innocent victims and they have no actual autonomy of their own. It's not the case. They chose to go work for this guy, and in this situation, again, show me some evidence otherwise. Show me some evidence here that he's screwing you and you're not getting your 40% split. That's not the case. The fact is, the development costs for Borderlands 3 were more than quadruple the cost for Borderlands 2, and you're splitting it amongst 800 employees. 800 employees, not 1 or 200. It's simple math. Anyway, that's it from me, Coach Toolshed. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people not happy with me here, because I have not seen a single person who is even considering going against the let's hate Randy Pitchford narrative. And I know this is the easiest thing to do, to dunk on the guy. He's a very hateable person, and I hate the guy too. But the facts are the facts. So let's stick to the facts and not just, we have to feel bad for the game developers. Anyway, let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. I'm sure there's going to be plenty of people mad with this one, but that's fine. I'm just trying to present some actual facts here. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Please subscribe if you want to stay in tune with the channel head forward. And as always, keep it turned to 11.